Welcome to the Difficult Question Podcast. I am Bob Howard. The Difficult Question is a podcast about opinions, and it's where every opinion matters. It's also where we have some of the most healthiest debates around some of the most difficult topics. Our topic for today, what has happened to America, part 2. We did part 1, and we talked a lot about divisiveness along the lines of racism. We talked about racism an awful lot. So I don't want to get into the racism a lot today. We do know that racism it plays a significant role in the division that's out there in America. But I guess we got Steve and we have Eric, we got and Bill on the podcast today. Brandon and Justin are veterans at this point. We thank you guys. So I want to ask Steve or Bill, one of you guys could chime in. So what do you think? What do you think is going on in America today? Do you think we're solid and it's just an illusion that things are bad? What do you guys think? We start with you, Steve. Go ahead. What do you think?
Well, first of all, I'd just like to say thanks to Bob to invite me on the program today. And I've watched a couple of the episodes. Seems like you're off to a good start. Happy to participate. And I really feel like forums like this are important today. Because it opens up discussion on difficult topics. And I really feel that's a big part of the reason that we are in a better place than where we came from. So to start with that, I think America, some folks might feel it's more divided than we've been. I don't necessarily agree with that. I think America's in the process of self-realization. They're going through some changes, or we are going through some changes as a country and a culture, recognizing that things aren't okay, and trying to deal with it. It's slow, it's painful, and it's multifaceted. So I will say I had to cheat a little bit. I did watch the first episode, so I had the benefit of some of your all comments from earlier. It might have made affected my opinion a little bit, or maybe I should say I agree with them more some than others, but that's kind of where I think we're at right now.
Okay, so Bill, what do you think? Do you think are we going down a path of like a good path, bad path? Where do you think we are right now in America?
I think we're in some pretty challenging times. First, thanks for having me on the show, Bob. I really appreciate it. And I have paid attention to some of these, a couple of your other episodes, and I'm glad to be here. So if you're asking what path we're heading down, I don't think it's a tremendously different path than we've always headed down. I think it's a lot more polarized. It's a lot more, you get news so quick, right? So what you used to read about tomorrow morning, you see live, and everybody has a camera, so that's a part of it. And I think the politicians play a big role in this, and I think challenging times, but I don't think we're in a tremendously different times than we've ever been in.
Eric, you want to add to that? What do you think is going on in America? Because, I don't know. Does it seem like we're on a good path, bad path? Where do you think we're going?
Bad path, I really don't know. I really haven't thought about what path that we're on, but the first thing is correct, which I believe the first speaker, I can't see the names, he said is we need to start talking. Steve, yes, we do need to start talking about it, having conversations, talk out differences, find out where people are at and try to work through some of these things, because if we don't talk, it is going to get worse. Because people are believing what they believe now. You can look at the news, and the news is always painting a bad picture, always painting a racist picture, cops against black people. It's constantly like that. It's not always like that. Most of the time it's not. But if you look at the news, and you know how I feel, you look at the news, they're always showing a cop shooting a black person. And that's not the case. If you look at the stuff on YouTube, look at the police channels and look at the videos, they are shootings all over the United States, and they're not always black. And most of the ones that are black, probably 99% of them, you never see because they're justified or look like they're justified. You hear about the few.
Mm-hmm. So, Justin, I guess for me, I think the conversations are important as well. What do you think some of those conversations should look like? I think Steve had a valid point, so I want to kind of talk about that a little bit. What do you think some of those conversations should look like?
I think as far as what they should look like, a lot of what we do on here and all that, you know what I mean? Where it is just people from, it could be we have similarities, we have differences. We see some things the same, we see other things, we see it different. But it's just having like free space to openly not just voice your opinion, but also listen to others. You know what I mean? I think that's really important. Like being able to hear, like it's all right for sometimes people to think different than you and to have different opinions than you. A lot of the time you have more things in common than you do different. And you know what I mean? And it's just that. I will say about what Steve said in particular, it was optimism. Like he wasn't denying like that, he wasn't saying, oh, things are perfect right now and all that, but it was like an optimism in what Steve said. That like we're going to work through this essentially and all of that. And I think kind of approaching things with that kind of optimism. I think a lot of the time today we are overly pessimistic when it comes to this stuff. So just even like that little bit of optimism right there, like that, I don't know, that's good to hear. You know what I mean? It's exciting to be able to engage with someone like the people on these panels that are coming respectfully, but very opinionated and have what they have to say. And, it's just that, you know what I mean? Just talk, be all right. Listen to people, listen. I think that's the key. Listening. We're good. I think I'm one of those people too. I can be really good at talking, but listening is more of a challenge. So that's something I'll be working on.
I will say that it's harder to do that. It's harder to be optimistic these days because of the amount of negativity that's thrown in our faces, on a regular basis, no matter what it is. And, we're, like Bill said, the news is coming at you fast, and there seems to be a lot of agenda behind no matter what you watch, really. So I think it's really incumbent upon each of us to filter that negativity out of what we see and try and take things at really what their face value is, and try not to follow the agenda so much as to form your own opinion about what's going on based in fact, and
right.
How it affects people respectfully.
As well as with social media, somebody will put something out there, and without knowing facts, without finding out for yourself, they just run with it. They believe with it.
That's a great point too, with the facts. So you do have to have these conversations. So, and you got to understand what are facts and what are not. What is not. So, Brandon, conversations, right? We're going to talk about the conversation. What do you think is a conversation that we need to have that we're not having? Is there a conversation that you think we should be having right now?
Well, I think, if you're looking for fireworks, you know what I'm saying? I'm sorry to disappoint you. Still gonna have to wait till the 4th of July. You know what I'm saying? My all I can go off of is my experience, right? I try to maintain authenticity at all points. So with that in mind, Justin said it on the last episode, you go outside, everything is fine. You're enjoying your life. Things are positive. You get on social media, you get on CNN, Fox. They telling you it's unrest, it's racism, it's oppression, it's this, and that. So for me, just in my experience, I stay completely independent from those things. You know what I mean? So I couldn't necessarily tell you. I think it breaks down to an individual level, what matters to us there. I know what matters to me. So I stay out of that realm in particular.
So, Bill, do you think that what you see on the news is it fake? Is the media like driving some of this? There are protests, there are cop shootings, there are there are like a lot of things. You got the Breonna Taylor, you got all of these things. So, are these things not happening? But
let me say this, Bob. Looking at the Obama administration to the Trump administration. outside of being upset, you know what I'm saying? Outside of being mad, oh, it's racist white people, it's Trump supporters. How was your life affected? Because if I look at my life, 29 years, it don't matter who president is. You know what I'm saying? Outside of being mad, outside of being emotionally invested, your life is the same. It's like wrestling, man. It's like WWE. And we put all this time and all this energy into this stuff. And it does nothing. It lines these people's pockets. It puts them on a pedestal, and it does nothing for us on our level.
So I would ask. I want to ask Bill. Is it an illusion? Are these things not happening, or are they put in our face to polarize us?
So okay, so you're asking about news and media and fake news, right? Because we've heard that quite a bit lately. And when I think about fake news, it's I think about like the story about Sasquatch, right? If they're covering Sasquatch sightings and stuff like that, that's truly fake. But what they're in it for is ratings. And we know that, and they know who their audience is, and their agenda is to captivate their audience, right? Don't turn the channel. So they're very tailored in how they're going to spin their news. And I think if you pay close attention to what they say and who their sources are, you can figure a lot of things out on your own instead of just believing it. As far as things that are happening now that they're covering, I don't think, like in the case of George Floyd, right? There's no real fake news there, but it wouldn't have been news before internet, before everybody carried a phone. Therefore, there wouldn't have been the protests. At least I don't think so, right? So I think just so much has changed, and I go back to what I say with everybody having a camera in their hand at all the time.
So, Bill, I will tell you, I just to cut you off, I want you to finish, though. Malice Green, you remember Malice Green?
I remember that, yeah.
So that was not the internet age, or if it was like a beginning of the internet, and there were protests around Malice Green. So, there was still, I guess, police brutality at that point. Those cops ended up going to jail, and there were protests, and there wasn't the internet. So I just as a comparison.
Yeah, I think that I don't think a whole lot is happening different right now. I think you see a whole lot more of it. It's much more exposed, right? Mm-hmm. I think that in some cases, like over the 4-year stretch we just went through, I think that certain things that were that certain individuals were unwilling to say or portray became kind of mainstream, and that was damaging to us.
Okay. So, Steve, I want to ask you, how easy do you think it is to, because I think Bill has a very, very relevant point. We got all of the cameras in our face. We got skewed news. You got, the reporters and the media, they're making money. So how easy do you think it is to polarize someone or convince someone of something that is not true? Like some people say, Trump caused the Capitol, the people to storm the Capitol, but then you got the Trump supporters who say, oh, no, he didn't. So how easy do you think it is to polarize Americans?
Well, I think people, if you understand that, people will latch onto things that support what they already believe. If people in general have their own agendas. They're based on their own experiences and what have you. But if you present an issue or something to a person that supports what they're already leaning towards, I think it's very easy to do that, regardless of what the issue is or what side of it you're on. If you give them things that make them feel good about the way they believe, they're going to latch onto it. And I think Trump was very effective at doing that personally.
What do you say, Bill?
It's pretty easy to believe what you want to believe, right? It's a whole lot easier. And like I said, the media knows who their audience is.
Okay. Eric, so Eric, me and Eric have had some conversations offline about police and him being a retired police officer. He posed a test to me. He said that he would give me 3 people and he would ask all of us to try to handcuff him. right? And he talked about how difficult that is. And so when, you know, the police officers, when they're out there doing their job, it's like we take it for granted because it's not as easy as it looks. Eric, you want to talk about that really quick?
Yeah, the question I posed to him was, I would say him and two other people, I would like you to handcuff me without trying to hurt me or throw me to the ground. Because people are always saying, oh, they threw him to the ground to arrest. You're not going to be able to handcuff me if I don't want you to and I'm standing up. One person is not going to do it, okay? You know, two people, three people without throwing me to the ground and maybe causing some physical harm, at least being physical with me, you're not going to be able to handcuff me. We didn't try these things. So when you see police taking somebody to the ground real quick, usually that's to hurry up and handcuff them. Even though that person, you're going to get a little sore or something, somebody throwing you to the ground and you know, like you see people having their knee in somebody's back, you know. The point of that is so that person don't roll over. Everybody don't know that. I understand people don't realize it because they don't know. Somebody's resisting and fighting with you, it's going to be hard to handcuff them. You're going to have to use some physical strength with them, all right? It's going to look like, it don't have to be police brutality. Do I have to stand in the guy's neck? No. Do I have to punch the guy in the face? No. I'm not saying that, but you're going to be on his back. You're going to put your knee in his shoulder. You're going to have two or three of y'all, you know, and then he hurting or whatever. I hurt. Put your hand behind your back. Eventually, what y'all don't see, most people at some point, when it hurts enough, they're going to put their hands behind their back.
Right. So
after that, what was the question with what I think is like with most people don't realize that once you do it and the person is handcuffed, you're supposed to stop the pain. You know, stop what you're doing. You try to set them up or get them up at that point. You're not supposed to do like Derek, what's his nim, Chauvin, and leave your knee in somebody's neck for 9-10 minutes or whatever it was with him handcuffed. That's not what you do. Now, if people don't resist, you know, you get people you see put your hands up behind your interlace and they do like this and do like that. That's what happens most of the time. The police brutality part doesn't happen. With y'all, everybody wants to call brutality. Oh, you didn't have to do him like that.
So I need to ask anybody could jump in on this one. I want to know, why does it seem up here that police they take advantage of their jobs? Why does it seem like, you know, I saw a video of the police taking down a 73-year-old woman with dementia, right? So that just shouldn't have happened. I saw, you know, some of them, though, I kind of agree with. I think I'm more on the tougher end of it. But why do you guys think that police brutality is at the forefront right now? Why do you think I guess racism is at the forefront? Why do you think these things are flashed in our face every day at this point? Anybody?
It's the easiest thing to get us going, you know, like that's the country. Race has always been at the forefront. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not one of those people that thinks like, you know, that's dog in the United States thinks this is the worst place ever and all of that. I think, you know, my life is pretty, that's messed up to say, but you know what I mean? I'm not saying it's perfect just because my life is pretty good and all of that. But, racism is in the DNA of the country. That's been with us for a long time. That's how we're kind of taught from birth how to see ourselves and all of that, you know what I mean? So that's like an easy thing to get us really in our emotions and stuff like that. And I mean, the history, you know, of police brutality and stuff too. At the same time, you know what I mean? Like, and I bet Eric will have better data on that if you looked at, you know what I mean? How significant it's a significant issue. For George Floyd, police brutality is a significant issue. If you're in an over-policed community, it's a significant issue. It's easy for someone like me who lives in a community where crime isn't like a really big deal and all of that. There isn't a huge police presence and not complaining about it and all of that. So I'm like real tiptoeing right now with my words because I don't want to say nothing wrong and all of that. Because like I see both sides is what I'm saying pretty much. You know what I mean?
Just saying, I'm not easily offended.
Oh, it's not even about offending you. It's not even about offending you because you know what I mean? If you took the total number of encounters that police have with the public and then looked at what percentage of those turned violent? And then out of those, what percentage of those was the violent unjustified? You know what I mean? That would probably change people's perspective, or at least challenge them on if they make assumptions that the police are super, super crazy or whatever. But then, you know, people do have, you know, like the laws in this country, like y'all are in charge of like enforcing, like, you know what I mean, taking people to jail for like unpaid traffic tickets and stuff like that. Like, I'll be mad if you did that to me and like some stuff like that. You know what I mean?
I can tell you one thing. If you had unpaid traffic tickets and got stopped in the city of Detroit, most of the time they let a lot of people go, because I think we were talking, me and some Detroit cops were talking, and they were saying black males around the age of, I think it was 20 to 35, they said more than half, if not 75% of them, they have warrants for their arrest for traffic tickets because people just don't pay them in Detroit.
I want to ask Steve, have you ever had a negative encounter with a police officer?
And that wasn't because of my actions. You're doing wrong. You're going to have the consequences for that. But on the other side of that coin, I did have an encounter with a police officer that pulled me over late at night in my truck. And, you know, as you approach the side of the car, I rolled my window down. I put my arm out on the side of the door, wait for him to approach. And as soon as the guy seen my white arm stick out of the window, this was in Detroit. As soon as he seen that, he's a white officer. He says, "Oh, okay." I heard him say that, and he goes, "Hey, what are you doing?" I said, "I'm here at work." He goes, "Oh, we've been having a problem with these types of trucks being stolen around here," and that was the extent of the stop. But I know in my heart, if I was a black man, that would not have been the end of that stop. You know, I probably would have had to provide identification and all of that stuff, and you know, it was pretty eye-opening at the time, actually.
So I'm going to say, I think that's powerful. I'm going to tell you, man, I really, really thank you for even having the courage to say that, because a lot of people wouldn't say that. A lot of people would, you know, have that encounter and still say, "Oh, nothing exists." But
so I will tell you, Bob, you know, racism is still an absolute problem in our country, and white people of all people, as funny as that is to say, should know it, because if you're around white people, enough white people, you're going to hear somebody say some off-color stuff, and that's because they feel safe in a room full of white people when they say stuff like that.
I'm glad you said that.
And if you are honest about it, every white person can tell you that same story.
I agree 100%.
Yeah, I was going to ask Bill, do you have anything to add to that? Because
I agree with exactly what Steve just said. I mean, if any white person, you know, that especially if you grew up in a white community, if you're going to claim that it doesn't exist, you're lying.
Right. So I want
to things that wouldn't be said if the circumstances were different and there were blacks and whites in the same room.
Right. So you saying that, go ahead, Eric.
I have other, I'm thinking of a time I have had other white cops, you know, me and them working together, you know, driving the van, picking up prisoners or whatever. And he comes back to me and said, "Them guys stupid. They was just back there saying all type of stuff about black people." Well, when I walked in, he walked in before me. As I was walking in, they stopped talking. He the one that told me that. But I have said before, when people were protesting, you know, you have a lot of white people coming down from other cities and other states come to protest at different cities as well as Detroit. I don't think that's as helpful as if them white people going back to their communities, opening up a dialogue, talking to the people that they know that are racist or have some racial tendencies about them. That's more beneficial than coming down here protesting in the city of Detroit than going back home to your white neighborhood.
Right.
Well,
so
I might disagree with that a little bit, Eric, though, because I really, you know, in on my almost 50 years here, in this last set, if you would call it, set of protests last year, I think it's the first time we've seen engagement from other colors than just black people over this kind of thing. And I think it's super important that
I agree with that.
That movement should be diverse, in my opinion. I believe and I understand your point. I'm not saying that you're wrong. Please don't.
Oh no. I was just going to add to it.
I think both. I'm
going to add to it. That's all. That's
okay.
All.
Right. I want to get ask Justin and Brandon, because they're both 20 somethings, right? So I want to know, what do you guys think about, like Bill and Steve are both 50 somethings, and I think that both of them just, I mean, they
49.
Okay. Okay. Sorry.
If you trip and fall, he'll be 50.
Okay. All right. So, I mean, how does that make you guys feel with these guys making those type of statements? Because it seems like, the narrative on TV is that, that's not normal, right? So what do you guys think about them making those statements?
I mean, it's a great thing and all that, but I mean, for me, those are the type of people I associate with, right? The open-minded, the people who are inclusive and accepting. So it's not like a foreign concept for me. I think, from what I saw, last summer was the first time in my lifetime that I saw, other races, other ethnic groups coming out in large numbers, being very, very vocal about their support for African Americans. But again, you know what I'm saying? I don't buy too much into all of that stuff. Life is very, very short. I understand that. I'm almost 30 years old. So I don't choose to spend my time worrying about who's oppressing me, who's racist, this and that. I had a conversation with my brother in January, and I asked him, when you're going out and about with your wife, man, how do you deal with, because me being back in Michigan, I just got back. First time really experiencing racism. I lived down south for 8 years, experienced virtually none of it. I come back to Michigan, I experience it almost every day. You know what I'm saying? So I asked him, how do you deal with that? He says, man, I don't even pay attention to it. It don't exist. I apply that to my life, and you know what happens? It does not exist. So we choose to focus on this stuff. We choose to make this stuff relevant in our lives. So I try to stay as independent from that as possible and just maintain a positive mind.
Justin, you want to add to that?
It is like that, not saying it don't exist at all, but like, what does it do for your individual life?
Right. That's what I'm saying.
Because it is weird. That's why, like, what do I think? I don't really know what I'm supposed to think about all of this stuff, because you have certain people trying to convince me that certain, white liberal people, certain black people trying to convince me that I'm oppressed, that white supremacy is the biggest factor in my life, that I can't accomplish what I want to accomplish unless white people change this. And it's like, that's dumb. Why would I believe that? You know what I mean? When I was young, like, you know what I mean? I believed that for a period in my life, and I sucked because of that. You know what I'm saying? And it's just, that's silly, I guess, to me. You know what I mean? And but at the same time, like, those people that are pushing all of this stuff, like, it is important, you know what I mean? That, more and more people are aware of these kind of bigger issues that are going on in the country. Like that George Floyd thing last year, one thing that I think got lost in all of that was really surprising me at the time, is that when George Floyd got killed, like, a lot of those big conservative names that were pro-police on every single thing were like, yeah, that officer was out of line, he needs to get arrested. Like, I remember Rush Limbaugh even saying, like, Chauvin was crazy, he needs to go to jail. I remember Ben Shapiro saying that, like, these people that, like, almost 100% of the time take the police aside. And I thought that was like the result of these conversations kind of being pushed to the forefront so much that even those people that you could count on for what they're going to say were like on this, having like a more reasonable understanding of stuff and seeing like racism exists. Like, nobody can deny it and all that. I'm rambling again. I feel like I'm doing terrible right now because I just feel like go ahead, Brandon.
No, I like you talked about that detachment from, the feelings of white America towards you. It's like, why should I care? Why should I care about what white America thinks about me? You know what I'm saying? Like, why is that even a thought? I've got the ability to go out here and make stuff happen. I've got the ability to go out there and make something for my daughter, to build a life, to build something that's going to last. You know what I'm saying? I don't have to stay connected to whoever it may be oppressing me and things. I never touch it. You know what I'm saying?
Like it's nowhere from someone like me to fit in. You know what I mean? Like I said, you got one side of people that trying to convince me that everything's racist and I need to be complaining all the time and all that. And then you got another side of the people that, like, I don't fit in there either. So someone like me, you ask me what 20-something like you think, it's like, I don't know. I don't buy the mainstream narrative. I don't really buy any of the other narratives too. I just kind of don't know. I don't know what's
Justin,
happening in America.
Isn't that kind of the direction? I feels to me like I've got twin 19-year-old kids and a 23-year-old daughter. I really feel like that generation is just more inclusive. They look at people for who they are more than any generation before them. So I mean, it's just you doing you. You know, I don't feel like you have to fit in. Like you are who you are, and you're accepted for it, and that's great. That's the way, in my opinion, that's the way it should be. We shouldn't be put in these buckets and with labels, and you know, it's very hard to get around that. But you know, just to be able to live your life the way you want to live it, and be content to do that, that's a great way to do it.
Yeah, I agree, Steve. I think it's hard to get around it if you care about what people think about you. You know what I'm saying? If you care, you know, that people feel, you know, you get what I'm trying to say. If you worry about that, you know, people caring about your opinion is important, I think it matters. If it doesn't, it's all good. Me, you know, we like to judge people and this, and that. I stand by only God can judge me. A lot of times we feel like, even with the racist thing I was talking about, you know, white lady looks you up and down in the store, wants to make you feel bad because of something she feels. Why should I care about that? It has nothing to do with me. It has no effect on my life. And I think we in America, we try to pass off our opinions and make them matter in people's lives.
So let me ask you, have you ever got looked up and down by a black person? Have you ever?
All the time.
Have you ever, let me ask Steve and Bill, you guys could chime in. Have you guys ever experienced someone being racist towards you? And I'm saying it could be in Indian or any other race being racist towards you, because what happens is everybody, go ahead.
Go for it.
So I just, is it just us that have to deal with that, or is it? Brandon, go ahead. You're breaking up.
No, go ahead. I was just gonna say that don't make a lot of sense, but go for it. Go ahead.
That doesn't make a lot of sense. Why?
Has somebody been racist to Bill and Steve?
Yeah.
Is that what you asked?
Yes. Has anybody ever profiled them? Has anybody ever?
Yes.
Profile.
I would say yeah. I say the answer is yeah.
Yeah, everybody.
You know, but it's not in the sense that I think that a black American might be racially profiled, but I definitely have felt that people have certain kind of, you know, feel a certain way about me because I'm white, just because I'm white, really without knowing me. And you know, you walk into a room of black young Americans, and you know, I feel like you're prejudged sometimes, obviously not all the time, until they get to know me, and you know, then it seems like, okay, maybe that's not what I thought. You know what I mean? But I don't have there's definitely not, I don't feel like there's the barrier there like there would be for a young black adult.
Right.
You know what I mean? I have not had anything like that. But I have definitely noticed just preconceived notions, if you know, about me, because I'm just white, you know.
About you, Bill, you have anything to add to that one?
You know, nothing major has, I don't think I've experienced anything major. I mean, there's a few incidents where I thought I got stared at or looked at, and maybe I felt like I was in the wrong neighborhood or something like that. But I've never had anything that I think that you guys would experience on a regular basis. And to piggyback on what Brandon said, I kind of lost my train of thought, but you were going down a road of people telling you how everybody wants to worry about what other people are doing, and I think the news is real good at that as well. Is just, why are you worried about what the next person is doing? And that's one of the biggest issues that exist in this country today, because I'm only worried about what I'm doing, just like Brandon. I'm going to do my thing. I'm going to get up in the morning, eat my breakfast. You know, I might go fishing. I might go to work. I might do work in my yard. And as long as I stay away from that TV and all the social media, I'm good, right? And then as soon as you get into that, you start looking at the news, and you see the discontent and them just trying to draw their audience towards their agenda. And it's usually complaining about what other people are doing. And that's a big issue to me.
No, I completely agree with that. 100%. I want to just your opinions on how do we. Because you got the world stage as well. You got, of course, you got the racism thing, but you have a world stage. You got America, and if when I was a kid, it was baseball and apple pie. It was like, used to say the Pledge of Allegiance in school, and God was on everything. And it's just is it me? It could be me, but is it me, or does it seem like I ain't gonna say corrupt, but does it seem like America is becoming less moralistic? Do we have less morals? We're going to ask Eric that question. Do you think we're less moralistic in America than we were?
Yes. You can see it every day. You see it in the social media. You see it on the news. You see it on the videos. You see it in the movie. I mean, yeah, it is. And I remember saying Pledge Allegiance in school, standing up. I remember all of it. I don't know why it just seems like since we were kids, and talking about the four of us now, everything is it seems like it's got worse. And I always used to hear my great grandparents talk about when they were kids and how things were different. And I'm seeing the same thing now.
Right.
I remember.
I have no answers. I have no answers. I just don't have no answers to none of it. But Justin and Brandon were talking, and I guess I live by the same thing. I have had incidents in uniform, outside of uniforms when I was a kid and gross. I'm thinking of an incident when I was in my mother's car. My mother and my aunt went into Kroger, or was it Joanne? I think it was Kroger's over on 7 Mile. It was Maross, Mac and Maross. All right. They didn't change the stores around. Now, I remember a racial incident happened to me in the car. I was 14 years old, when a white man came out the store, started beating on the car, talking about, y'all get out of here. Of course, you know which words he was saying. He was probably about 6'3", about 350 pounds. And his wife came and grabbed him and walked away. Me and my brother was in the car looking like, what's his problem? We didn't know. We knew of racism because when you lived in the ghetto, you talk about it, other people do. As I got older, I understood more, and things became like everything is not racism. That was a different incident, of course. I had an incident when I was in uniform. I can't remember the year, but I went to Dearborn. As you know, if you lived in the city, what they said about Dearborn back in the 80s, right, Bob?
Mm-hmm.
And it was just one cop. We in there talking, everybody nice. One cop just happened to look at me. I had a white partner with me, looked at me just real funny and just like walked past me, almost like wanted to just do like that to me. You know what I mean? And I just look so like, yeah, I have experienced racism in and outside of uniform. I have seen things, most time I don't pay it no attention because I understand that's part of the society we live in, but it doesn't define me. I'm not going to sit out here and scream bloody racism, every time everything happens. I normally just don't say nothing, it just, okay, I see things, I might notice things because some things are subtle, and that is true. Some things are subtle. But okay, all right. And I just keep moving. I don't,
one of the things that I see, white people push back against is this idea of systemic racism. You hear all the time. There's no such thing as systemic racism, and I think that's one of the things that we're struggling with right now is accepting that as a true notion and how to deal with it, but. In the same sentence, those same folks will comment about, the inner city and, why are these young thugs doing this? And, but they don't take a moment to realize, well, why does it exist like that? Why is the inner city filled with a bunch of young black or a bunch of black families? And how did that come to be? And I think that's really the crux of this issue is, when you start talking about systemic racism, you're talking about a society that is set up to run a certain way, and as black folks as a culture were affected by it negatively, and they congregated in these places, and their opportunities weren't the same as the white folks were. Now you go back, it's just as recently as the 50s. Black people weren't welcome in the suburbs. There were laws that they weren't able to get mortgages. They couldn't develop familial wealth and pass it on to their kin the way that white people could and had been doing for years and years and years. And they went to where they were comfortable in these inner cities and leased and rented and it just goes on and on and on. You know, if you ask the question, do you believe that somebody in the inner city, the school system is giving those kids the same shot as somebody in a affluent suburb? The clear answer to that is no.
Correct.
So everybody starts out from scratch, square one. You're a kid, you're born. If you give, it doesn't matter the color, if you give these two kids the same opportunities, in today's world, do they wind up at the same place? I don't think that they do. Even if, and that's just giving those equal opportunities, they don't get that either.
Okay. Bill, you wanted to add something?
Well, I think I caught one word, Steve, and I agree with everything Steve said, but one word that jumped out at me, I think that's been left out of this a little bit, is family. And what has happened to the American family over the last several decades. So let's go back to the 60s and 70s where Dad worked 40 hours a week, made a good living. A lot more of the manufacturing was right here in the United States, so their jobs were a little easier to come by, better pay. Healthcare was under control for the most part. But Dad worked. Mom stayed home for the most part, took care of the kids, helped the kids with the homework, whatnot, and weekends were for family things. And look at what it has become now. Dad doesn't work 40 hours a week anymore, right? He works 60, sometimes 70. Mom works 40. And the kids are home alone often and just it's not the same as it used to be as far as the close-knit families and how much time they spend together. And I think that has changed America in a humongous way.
I could agree with that. I could easily agree with that. And what it's done, and Bill, and maybe, I mean, you guys tell me, but hasn't that created some selfishness, right? Because it's like everyone has to fend for themselves now, because if the kids are home or the kids are doing their thing because the parents are working, you know, it gives them a sense of, I did this on my own instead of the family doing it. I mean, what do you guys think?
I'll chime in. I don't know, but I'm thinking about, I don't know if this is directly answer what you're saying, but like when that happens, think about like who's more so raising the kids then? Are the parents raising the kids, or is the culture raising the kids? Is the media raising the kids? Are the rappers raising the kids? Are the celebrities raising the kids? And think about, go ahead, Bill.
All of the above.
You know what I mean? And I'm thinking about that, like even in my experience, I think I had really great parents growing up, but like even I think about Brandon, me, you, and John and Darius, you know what I mean? At night, like I learned how to like deal with like relationships and girls and stuff from them. Like I didn't have no parental, no one in that generation teaching me how to do it the right way and all of that, essentially. And then that leads to you doing it wrong and messing up and hurting a lot of people. And then as you get older, you having to teach yourself how to do it the right way and stuff. You know what I mean? Where it's like, so that's not really answering your question, but just thinking about like, what does that do then if essentially, you know, because you have to work, you have to provide for your family monetarily, house, clothes, all of that, who's actually raising, you know, the kids a lot of the time in the generation.
Bingo.
So who is raising? I mean, Steve, Bill, you want to talk about who is raising the kids and how is it affecting our children?
Not necessarily mom and dad like it always was, not as directly anyways, right? I think there's a lot more nannies involved today. I think kids are home alone a lot more with the babysitter, with the neighbors down the road because mom's working late or dad isn't home. And I just think I know it didn't used to be that way. And I think it's a discussion that doesn't take place enough, that I think the rat race has become a little too busy for Americans and some of the core values of families have kind of gone away with it. And that's unfortunate. I think it leads to a lot of the other problems that we have. Who's raising
I'm sorry, Eric, go ahead. How many times does a family sit down and eat dinner together anymore?
You know, everybody's so busy. We eat a bunch of fast food, takeout. Nobody is sitting down at the dinner table. I used to sit down at the table when I was a kid all the time and eat. I was raised by my great granddaddy and my great grandmother. All right. And I used to sit down and eat with all the time. He would cook. When my great grandmother died, he would cook. We would sit down, eat together. We used to watch, it shows you, goes back, watch the news together. He used to have me sit there and listen to the Tigers on AM radio with him. All right. We would sit there in the room, listen to the Tigers game.
Are you sure you're only 50? Are you sure you're only 50?
We would sit there and watch Channel 9 and watch Hockey Night in Canada. All right? Y'all know what I'm talking about. Y'all Steve, know what I'm talking about.
Steve, you wanted to add to that. What did you have, Steve? What did you want to add?
No, I was just gonna say, right, I got that, but is it fair to say, okay, because I had experiences and they were positive, that everybody else should have to have these experiences too, and other people should consider these important? You know what I'm saying? That goes back to that whole thing I was talking about earlier about, because we had these opinions, we had these feelings, that should dictate what goes on in society. So I would just ask that question, Eric.
All right. So Steve, go ahead. You had an input.
No, I would ask that question to Eric.
Oh, go ahead.
You mean about the experiences that I had?
Yeah. Do you think that because you had those experiences, which are phenomenal, they're positive, but do you think because they're important to you, they should be important to everybody else?
I don't know about important. It's the family time, values you learning from, from people older than you, people that had values or good moral values as you were growing up, role models, and they instill that in you. It's just like with your dad and your mom. They have raised three good kids, two wonderful young men. I have told Bob this before, and it shows, and a lot of kids don't have that. My great granddaddy and my great grandmother, they tried to raise me. My mother, we was in a 2-family flat. My mother stayed upstairs. My brother stayed, because there was only 2 bedrooms. He stayed upstairs with her. I stayed downstairs with my great grandparents, So I saw my mother going to work, my great grandfather doing things. My grandfather was involved, my grandmother, I had all these people around me. I didn't see people in my family, my immediate family, going to jail, getting arrested, doing drugs. My great granddaddy used to like to drink, but I didn't see people doing drugs and some of the other things that people grow up with. There wasn't a lot of cursing in the household or whatever. Not really much spanking, because I was a different type of kid. They raised me a particular way, and it just worked for me. But the reason why I say that is because I look at some of the people in my neighborhood, because I grew up near Mack and Mount Elliott. I seen a lot of them in jail, a lot of them dead, a lot of them sold drugs and stuff like that, and they didn't have the family structure. Could you imagine Brandon and Justin? Imagine this. Just think about it. Think about being 10 years old, coming home with somebody else's bike, and your parents don't say nothing to you. You went and stole, because that was a big thing when we was growing up in the neighborhoods, whether it was Highland Park or Detroit, stealing people's bike. You go steal somebody else's ketchup and mustard swing. You come home with it. At that time, I think they were $130, $150. That was a lot of money back in the early 80s. You come home with that bike, and your parents don't say, "But where'd you get that bike from?" And that's all they say to you, and don't say nothing else. Can you imagine that?
The reason I asked that is not even to challenge that. I think it's to go back to a point we addressed earlier. I think the value in this show and the value in changing the things around us that we don't like is having these forums, having these conversations. So it's an opportunity for us to learn. You know what I'm saying? I have to speak on that medium, Bill, Steve, Justice. So I think that it just showcases the power in the show. That's why I asked that question.
Okay.
So, what I was going to speak to a minute ago, Bob, was it was to Bill's point about the family unit and the dinners in the evenings with the family and mom staying home. And, my kids, like I said, I got three children, and I don't think, their whole lives, they'd never experienced family dinner on Sunday. And, we not to say that we hadn't done that, but, I'm divorced for 10 years now. But we just not something that we were able to do with me working in the steel mill, and the mother, their mother, we were fortunate enough that she was able to stay home at least early on. But when the kids went to school full time, she went back to school and got herself a job. And we were never doing the whole.
What about when you were a kid, Steve?
Every day. Every day.
Right? Because I know this. There was dinner time, and this is when I was young.
You better be there for dinner.
Better be there. I can just remember this was before cell phones, obviously, and all that good stuff. But I can just always remember, and rest in peace, Dad, the one thing that would always upset him every day at dinner would be when the phone rang. He would get phone rang while we were all sitting there during dinner, and nobody better dare get up and answer it, right? And we didn't have a voicemail back. There wasn't even answering machines back then. So it would just ring and ring and ring and ring. And every time it rang, my dad would get more upset, so.
Right. You didn't even have to call waiting.
You had to.
Yeah. So
hey, Bob, just to one thing Eric touched on about the support of a good family, and, not to make it controversial or not, but, there was a shooting of a young 13-year-old black kid in the city. And, I'm not really trying to focus on how wrong that was, because I think everybody agrees it's wrong. But, when I seen that, your heart breaks for it, but it drives me crazy, because I'm thinking, I can't ever imagine a world in which my 13-year-old kid is out running around at 2:30 in the morning and I don't know about it.
Right.
That's how I think about that.
Oh, yeah.
How does that happen?
We had the street lights. When the street lights came on, you had to come home.
I had to be home.
My kids, like I told you, I got the iPhone. I tracked their ass. I'm real interested in what my kids are doing. And when they're 12 years old, now it is different than when I was young. I'll be honest about that. But, when my kids were 12 years old, I can honestly say they weren't anywhere I didn't know they were, or who they were with, and trust who they were with.
Right. So, hour goes by really, really quickly. So I want to, first of all, thank you guys. I'm not done yet. I just want to let you know we are coming to an end, and I want to go around one time and ask everyone, what do we do? I mean, what do we do to keep America from? I guess I looked on the internet and it says something about the American decline. It had, you can kind of look it up. And, we talked about those things, the family values. We talked about the racism. To me, the way we shouldn't even be talking about racism at this point. It shouldn't even be an issue. Steve, you a very good point. Why are kids running around at 2:30 at night with a gun, mind you? You know what I'm saying? So what are some things, right, that we should do, concrete solutions to some of the issues, or some of the issues that I guess bother you? So let's start with Eric. So if you could say an issue that bothers you and a solution. So basically, what is a solution to move America forward, like to put us back on top, at least make it seem like we're back on top?
It seems like we're back on top. Man, you really want me to find an answer or a solution?
Yeah. So, okay, let's talk about the moral issue. Like you talked about the moral issue. What do we have to do to improve the morals in America?
First of all, we got to stop thinking that everything is racist. And we got to show some respect to people also. It's so much disrespect also to people. It's on. Disrespect is everywhere. You look on social media, somebody clapping back, somebody throwing somebody else under the bus. This rapper, that rapper feuding online or whatever. Nobody is no respect for anything. Nothing is off limits. There's no respect. People, when I'm where I'm at, when I was working there and we had, black males or whatever, because normally work with males, and you have the white officers and you would have white inmates, they would use the N-word all day like it's nothing, they don't care, they use it around, like if your grandmama in the store, they don't care about cussing in front of your grandmother anymore, going in church, cussing, whatever. There's no respect nowhere. we have to have some, at least in respectful. I still hold the door when a lady. I'm out in the street and I'm opening the door to the restaurant, gas station. I still hold the door for a lady and say how you doing, ma'am, or whatever. People don't do that. They let the door close now on women. Some people, it's crazy. The whole thing is just so many problems. I don't know where to start. I just don't.
Okay. All right, Steve, you want to chime in on that one?
So, I don't know that there's really one answer for this, but I think we would go a long way in just keeping an open mind. Stop having the audacity to believe that you're always right.
Correct.
You know what I mean? Come on. You have to know that there are other solutions, there are other beliefs that are true, and some of yours are going to be wrong, And I think if we did a better job at trying to be empathetic and compassionate towards our fellow person and just walk a mile in their shoes or put yourself in their position, even if you can't relate, it doesn't mean that they're wrong in having those opinions. So I think if we were more compassionate and seeing the world through the eyes of others a little bit better, and we're open for good, positive change, I think that's a great first step.
That's awesome. Brandon?
Yeah, for me, I guess for me, I don't necessarily buy into that this is the greatest country in the world. You know what I'm saying? This is where we were put. This is where we grew up. So that's what we got. I'm just here. And again, I'm independent of that. But I think it starts with, defining what those values look like for yourself, for your family. What do those morals look like? And living that to the fullest. You know what I mean? Steering clear of judging others. You know what I'm saying? Not taking judgment from others too seriously, and trying to maintain a positive mind at all times. I think that's all we can do to control that.
Okay, thank you. Bill?
I think being more accepting of other people's opinions is good. Really, the main thing to me is to live your life, to keep your good values within your family, and to allow other people to live their lives the way they want to. And most of the things you hear people complaining about today aren't necessarily things that they're not affect me on a day-to-day basis on a whole lot of cases, but just have compassion for other people. I always think, what would it be like to stand in another person's shoes before I even try to pass judgment, right? And I've always noticed that if you listen to them, they'll tell you everything you need to know, really. And people talk more than they listen. So I think you have to listen to what other people feel, and not be so judgmental of them.
Okay. All right, Justin?
Yeah, this is a tough one, because even when y'all are talking about acceptance and don't judge, that's all beautiful and stuff, but in practice, it don't really work like that. At a certain point, you can't accept everybody. You don't accept the white supremacist. You don't accept the pedophile. You don't accept this person. You have to draw lines. You have to judge those people. You have to, you know what I mean? So it's essentially, where do you draw the lines? And are we drawing those lines all on the same thing? But I'm not one of those people. I'm not wise enough. You know what I mean? I think a lot of people are saying that to propose some one size fits all solution for everything. I think the way I approach things, what's important is always cleaning up your own house first before looking outside at everybody else. It's easy to put the blame on, it's white racism is the issue, or this is the issue, or this is the issue. And for me, I got to look inside and be like, in what ways am I wrong? In what ways have I messed up? In what ways can I do better? Because a lot of the time, I can't impact the whole country or whatever, but the people that I'm coming in contact with on a day-to-day basis, the people that I work with, the people that are neighbors that I'm in community with, if I'm living my life right, I can be an example and all of that so that they can be encouraged to go in the same direction that I'm going. You know what I mean? So I think a lot of it, we spend a lot of time looking outward and pointing outward instead of looking at ourselves and kind of cleaning up ourselves in our own house. And I think that can be a good start.
Right. I was also going to say it. I'm glad you said what you said, Justin. I'm trying not to be part of the problem. I don't have the solutions. I'm just not trying to be part of the problem. I don't want to be a hypocrite either. I'm looking at things. I think about things. I see things on TV. I see how people react. I think a lot about it because Bob I've talked about stuff 2-3 days later, because I'm thinking about it because I don't want to be or am I wrong myself? Am I right? I don't want to be part of the problem. Okay, what can I do to not be part of that narrative sometime that I don't agree with, that I think, okay, maybe that's wrong, maybe that's right, maybe, all right, let me talk to Bob, let me talk to one of my other friends, and then do some self-identifying in myself to see, okay, well, yeah, okay, I feel like, because I want to feel like when I go to sleep at night, this is my whole thing. When I go to sleep at night, I want to sleep good. I don't want to feel like I've done something wrong, that I have let myself down, my family down, okay? I don't want to feel like I've let my race down or whatever. I don't want to feel like I let my great-grandfather down, the one that raised me, okay? And that's another big thing, too. I don't want to let them down. He's the one that raised me, all right? Not my father, my great-granddaddy. And I loved him to death, and I do not want to let him down.
That's right. Yeah. So easily, I would say I have been educated today because I do see power. I think Brandon mentioned a few weeks ago talking about how this podcast could be, could be powerful. And today, absolutely, easily, I can see the power in the conversation. I can see the power in just, bringing out your opinions and then discussing it. I'm telling you, man, this podcast to me has been one of the most influential, right? Because I've learned a lot. I've heard a lot of things, and to me, it's just awesome. So I want to thank you guys, and I greatly appreciate the conversation. Please don't be a stranger. I know Bill and Steve. Bill, you did one before. We didn't air it yet, but we're going to do another one with you, Steve. Please make sure you come back. Eric, you're always welcome. All you guys are always welcome. I just want to thank you for this awesome conversation. So especially.